Hannah and I are both stoked to be here. It's, you know, not often that paddling companies in the north get to connect with sea kayaking communities down, and we just call everything like south of 60 the south, like including Edmonton is like we when we go to Edmonton, we go south. So I'll just refer to everything down there as the south. So we don't often connect with paddling communities in the south because there isn't a lot of northern paddling destinations for sea kayakers. It's mostly canoes trips up here, but there are some, and we're stoked to share some information and some photos and yeah, share some of what we know and our expertise on Great Slave Lake and the various paddling options on Great Slave Lake and our company. So this will go to the next slide. So yeah, Jackpine Paddle, who we are. So we're based in Yellowknife. We operate almost exclusively in the Northwest Territories. We are a canoe and kayak outfitter, an outdoor adventure company. Mostly we do guided trips by, canoe and sea kayak. Canoe is probably about 75% of our overall operations, but sea kayaking makes up a quarter. Um, our You just go back to the previous slide, Hannah, or slide number two. Yeah, so we do more than just offer guided trips, though. We help out self-guided adventures with rentals and logistics, or just simply help with questions and information. We operate all across the Northwest Territories, specializing in Arctic rivers, the Thelon, you know, um, the Thelon, the Coppermine, the Keel River, the Horton River, and all sorts of spectacular rivers across the north that you may have heard of. We just got our Nahanni National Park license. And we're going to talk to you about Canada's newest national park, Nahanni National Park, which is covers part of the east arm of Great Slave Lake. So Hannah's going to talk a bit more into detail with you guys about the specific routes that we do in the different arms of the lake, and I'm going to kind of set her up and paint the picture for you guys broadly. I don't know if anyone here knows. I think Hannah, is that a photo of is that Nathan in the photo there? Hannah made this presentation, so I don't know if that's.
No, it's that's Chase.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's another one of our guys. They both look, I guess, similar from the
They
back.
do look similar.
Yeah, I just thought that some folks would know Nathan Slater because he's done a lot of sea kayak guiding up in Guayhanas, and he was guiding with us on the east arm of Great Slave Lake last year.
There are photos in here that Nathan has taken, but no photos of Nathan. So
Got it. Yeah, perfect. Great. So I guess we can bounce back to the slide four. So yeah, we're a small company. Our team is about a dozen at our peak in July. The summer is pretty short up here. Like ice out typically is June 1st in the Yellowknife area, later in some of the further northern rivers north of us. But basically we have like 3 months to operate, and we'll often have 3 or 4 trips out at a time. We do like youth camps and other programming. We do work for Indigenous governments all across the north and contracts. And yeah, basically, we're here to make paddling dreams come true. And, I grew up in the north. There's a photo of me and my sister when we were younger with Great Bear Rock in the background. That's where the Great Bear River meets the Mackenzie River. It's like a culturally significant place in the Northwest Territories. I'm just going to close the door here for some of the sound. But yeah, we're like, I'm proud to be a northerner, and Yellowknife, is my home, and will always be my home. And yeah, it's definitely a privilege to get to share this place with others. Okay, let's go next slide. Our guides are, they are among the best. We have a great team. Really proud of them. I guess it's fortunate. Like I get a lot of applications from very qualified outdoor professionals, and we pick from them the best ones. And we're a tight-knit group, and I think we do create a really positive culture. We love to have a lot of fun on our trips and eat really good food. The food is always well, yeah, I think it's fair to say the food never really disappoints. Like, for the most part, people are kind of like blown away, and especially on the east arm of Great Slave Lake and also the north arm, there's lots of opportunities to incorporate food that we catch, like the fishing, which Hannah will talk about, and collecting berries when we can. I guess we'll go to the next slide. And I don't really know what the awareness is, like the expertise among the audience here of the Northwest Territories. So if you know a lot about the Northwest Territories, you're gonna have to kind of bear with me, but most people don't really know a lot about the Northwest Territories. So I was hoping just to give some basic information about it so you can help understand the context that Great Slave Lake is in and the trips on Great Slave Lake. Um, but it's obviously like a very large piece of land. It's huge, and there's all sorts of different parts of it. There's a vast area, which is the true Arctic beyond the trees, and then there's the whole, mountain range that kind of bridges our border with the Yukon, the Mackenzie Mountains, which just as the Rockies extend north. We have some of the biggest lakes in the world, Great Slave Lake, the deepest lake in North America, and then of course Great Bear Lake. There's not a lot of roads. Where almost all of our trips are accessed by air charter float plane or sometimes boat shuttle or sometimes both. So it is an expensive place to adventure, unfortunately. And logistics can be complicated, but ultimately, I think it's worth it. And I feel lucky to live in a place with the kind of wilderness that we have still today. Which is increasingly rare in today's world. So, next slide, please, Hannah. I'm not going to talk a lot about Alex Hall, but I do want to talk a little bit about Alex Hall. Alex was one of the first canoe guides in the Arctic and the North. He started his business, Canoe Arctic Incorporated, in 1973. So he ran his business for 43 years out of Fort Smith, which is a small town on the south side of Great Slave Lake. And Alex took over 2,000 clients out to the Arctic rivers, mainly the Thelon River in the Central Barrenlands and its tributaries, the Clark and the Elk. Some of the people on this Zoom call maybe paddled with Alex, or certainly maybe have read his book, Discovering Eden. But Alex passed away from cancer in 2018, and before he passed away, he actually passed his business to us. So we were, already operating a Jackpine Paddle, but it's definitely a big part of our identity today. Part of the reason why we really specialize in some of these Arctic expeditions and really helped us like grow our business to what it is. And so it's kind of part of our story now moving forward. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys just kind of place where we are on the map so you can get a better understanding of how to get here and where we are. So the photo there that you see is Yellowknife. You can probably see like my house in that photo because there's not that many, but we're right on the shores of Great Slave Lake, right where the Yellowknife River empties into Great Slave Lake. Yellowknife, of course, is the capital of the Northwest Territories, not to be confused with Whitehorse, the capital of the Yukon. I know it's kind of confusing, but you have to go back to your northern geography. Nunavut being the other territory, which was actually part of the Northwest Territories till about, I think about 20 years ago or ish, that we split them up. So yeah, I mean, this is the scale, right, that you're looking at, and we are, we are far away in the north, but when I was a kid, we only had Canadian North flying up to the north, and now we have Western and Air Canada, and it's actually pretty easy to get to. I actually dropped in yesterday at midnight on a direct flight from Vancouver, so it's 2.5 hours with Air Canada that runs those flights. I think Air North also runs direct Vancouver to Yellowknife flights, so now you have multiple options. Or with WestJet, you just bounce to Calgary or Edmonton. So Toronto and Ottawa are also connected direct to us at certain times of the year with multiple airlines, as well as, of course, Edmonton and Calgary. So we're really pretty easy to get to from certainly if your trip launches from Yellowknife. Um, some of our trips launch from like further northern communities, and that's just another regional flight required. So next slide, please. We are the Aurora capital of the world. There's a lot of Aurora tourism here in the winter. I don't know if like everyone knows though that there's a fall Aurora season, and that starts from well, technically, like growing up in Yellowknife, we all understand that August long weekend is the first weekend that you might see the Northern Lights, and that's just because that's the first weekend where the darkness starts to creep back. There's Northern Lights happening like all the time. They don't switch on and off per se because they come from solar flares, which happen all year. It's just in the summer we have too much sunlight because we have really long days, not quite like 24-hour sunlight, but on the solstice on June 21st, it's near midnight sun. So it's just too much sun to see the northern lights. So yeah, it's kind of neat living up here because there's always seasons changing and so fortunately the paddling season also runs through August and into September. So basically what I'm getting at for you guys is kind of the sweet spot if you're looking for Northern Lights as something that you'd like to experience, which is best experienced on a wilderness canoe, or kayak expedition, then you can time up that trip in the fall aurora if your kayak trip launches from mid-August onwards. Okay, next slide. We're the only NWT owned paddling operator in the North. We're really proud about that and the role we play in the community. Next, we have lots of partnerships with other northern operators, indigenous operators. Like I said, we work with communities quite a bit, and yeah, we're really proud of all that, and I think it makes our trips, like better. Next slide. Next point. Yeah. We also we really want to hire Northerners on our team. So about half of our team is composed in any given summer of like Northerners, like NWT residents, where the other companies, the numbers like zero. I of course like live in Yellowknife as the owner year round and grew up here. So, but there's not a lot of Northerners with skills to work in the industry. There's just not a lot of Northerners like to begin with. There's only 40,000 people here, but we started a Northern Guide training program to try to help train Northerners to work in the industry and benefit from tourism so that the Northerners can benefit more from this industry. And this year, we're actually partnering with Skills, which some of you guys might be familiar with as a BC operation. So Skills does, you know, SKABC courses. So we're actually going to we're teaming up with Finn, I guess the new owner, taking over from JF, and we're going to be running as part of our Northern Guide training program in mid-June, a SKABC assistant overnight guides component. So you could sign up for our Northern Guide training program and get that, or you could also just do that component through, signing up directly through Skills. So we're really excited for that. It'll be our first time working with Finn. And I think Nathan Slater looks like he'll be instructing on that, which we're stoked for. Okay, so the trips that Hannah's going to be telling you a little bit more about on Great Slave Lake, those launch from Yellowknife. So all you have to do is fly to Yellowknife. It's pretty simple, like I said, with the flights these days, but we do offer trips, of course, across the Northwest Territories, and some of you guys might be looking at other northern expeditions, and those could launch from other smaller towns serviced by northern carriers, and those would be Fort Simpson, which is primarily the Nahanni, and Norman Wells is mostly Mountain River trips like the Keel River or the Great Bear River, also the Horton River, where you can also get out of it in Nunavik up there as you move towards the Arctic Ocean. So not just in Yellowknife, but Yellowknife is where we're based out of. That's where most of our gear and our stuff live. Okay, so I'm not going to talk a lot about the political history and the Indigenous land claim, modern land claim agreement, obviously. But I just wanted to show you guys this very kind of complicated map here, and basically just get the point across that the Northwest Territories has many different indigenous regions, like regional governments, usually divided up by land claim agreements, some of which are still being negotiated, some of which are settled. And within those regions, being like North Slave, South Slave, Satu, Decho, Quicho, and Beaufort Delta, there are like various communities as well that have their own distinct traditions and their own distinct territories, which often overlap, and languages. We have 11 official languages in the Northwest Territories. So I just want to get across the point that it's a very diverse landscape politically and culturally. And of course, as a paddler, you're looking at trips all across the north. So it could be in like various different regions and various different people's land. And obviously we're licensed and we communicate and have relationships with these governments, and that's kind of taken care of with our guided trips. If you are coming to the north on like a self-guided trip, something you organized yourself, you don't need a license to do it. You may need like a park permit if you're in a national park, like the Nahanni or Thai-Dene-Nene, but it is like a good practice just to figure out what community whose land you're on basically, and just like let them know as a courtesy that you'll be going through there. And yeah, they might not respond to you, but I think it's a good way of doing things up in the north, just to let people know that you'll be on their land. Next slide. Oh, and if you wanted to read up more about, the Indigenous history in the North, the political economic history, there's a great illustrated book by Joe Sacco called Paying the Land. It's like it's like a graphic novel, but it's a good overview, and I recommend reading it if you're going to come up in the North on a paddling trip, because it's not just about the water and the routes, it's about the people and the history of the places you'll be paddling in. This is a map of Great Slave Lake with a little more detail here, and I just wanted to point out some of the communities. So there's actually like 4 regions that touch the shores of Great Slave Lake, and Lutzel Cay out in the east arm is a Chippewa community of about 300 people. And that's the community out in the east arm. And then on the north arm, which Hannah's going to talk about, I guess it's split between Yellowknife Dene First Nations, which live in like Adetta and Delo, 2 communities very close to Yellowknife, right next to Yellowknife, and also Betchco, which formerly was Ray and Edzo. Okay, let's carry on. Next slide, please. And what you see there in green is Canada's newest national park. I don't know if that's accurate still. I continue to say that, but I think there's a newer national park. This one was signed into force in 2019. I don't know what the other one is. Someone mentioned it to me, but in any case, this is one of Canada's newest national parks. Took like 3 or 4 decades though to negotiate. It's a huge area. The national park proper itself is like 7 times as large as Algonquin, and it's really encouraging to see that we are actually setting aside large areas of wilderness to conserve here in the north. It's very exciting, and there's more conservation areas planned. Okay, and yeah, this is just another map of like Thai-Dene-Nene National Park. So this shows that like it does cover the east arm of Great Slave Lake, but it also covers an area towards the tree line of the tundra, Artillery Lake, and all these like the watershed basically of these rivers that flow into Great Slave Lake, like the Snowdrift and the Lockhart and other rivers there. So I'm going to pass it over to Hannah. I don't want to take too much time for my part here, but it's interesting with Iden and Nene. I guess the last thing I'll say is it's actually not just run by Parks Canada. it's a co-managed park, which is co-managed Government of Canada, Government of the Northwest Territories, and the Indigenous governments. Primarily, let's look at Dene First Nation, but also others. So it's a new way of like managing and governing a park, which is unique to this park. Uh, Although there are other co-managed parks in Canada. Okay, Hannah, was that the last slide? I think that was it for my part of it. So if you're ready, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so we'll jump into Great Slave Lake, and we've now zoomed in from the territorial view down to the lake, down to one specific area. So we're gonna jump back out. So here you can see Yellowknife, just to orient yourselves here. And I want to orient us to the entire lake before we jump into each region that the paddling is spectacular in. So it's often described as being shaped like a flying goose. I'll give you a second to try and see that for yourself before I plop a goose on there. There we go. So, I think for ease of this overview, I'll refer to this just because it's quite easy for our brains to wrap around it. So, it is the 10th largest lake in the world, approximately the size of Belgium. It's a massive body of water, and this giant basin of water is also the deepest in North America, dropping to 614 meters, which would mean that you can put the CN Tower in this lake fully submerged with room to spare. It's Because of that, it has definitely some really cold regions that we'll talk about. It This giant body of water is fed by multiple rivers, but it's mostly fed by the Slave River, which comes in about the Goose's Belly, if you're looking on the map there. And it flows out of the Decho, or the legendary Mackenzie River that I'm sure most of us learned about or know a lot about or have dreamed of paddling. The Mackenzie River flows out the Goose's Tail area just past it and eventually ends in the Arctic Ocean. So as Dan mentioned, it is winter for a lot of time up here. So it's frozen for about 8 months of the year. And for this presentation, we'll definitely be focusing on the unfrozen times so we can paddle. And finally, before we move on here, it has two distinct arms. So it's been mentioned already a couple times, but the north arm is the wing of the goose. So the entire area underneath the wing is the north arm. From the previous map, yeah, Betchico is in the north area there, and then down to Yellowknife is the north arm. And the east arm is the goose's neck and head. And Nene that Dan was just talking about is the goose's head here and continues on beyond this lake, as was shown on the last map. So Jackpine Paddle is the only operator in both Nene and on Great Slave Lake itself. We help people with outfitting for rentals on self-guided trips, and we also run multiple trips a year for sea kayaking and canoeing in this region. It's not uncommon to go many days or pretty much an entire trip without seeing another person. It's a truly remote area, and I'm excited to tell you about it. So we're going to jump right into the North Arm. The North Arm is an area known for island navigation, for monster pike, and endless exploratory options, from open water crossings to island hopping to narrow pathways. Um, it's uh, its shallow waters are only really viable for canoe, kayak, and stand-up paddleboard as well. It's a glacier-scraped Canadian Shield region. So some of you might be sitting there thinking that it bears a resemblance to Georgian Bay. Georgian Bay, Ontario, if people have paddled there. I grew up on Georgian Bay. I've paddled both Georgian Bay and the North Arm, well, Georgian Bay especially extensively, having guided there for years. But the North Arm, I would say they are similar in some ways, but there's definitely some pretty large differences from the North Arm just being northern, smaller trees, more rugged. It's definitely more remote. You don't have the fancy motorboats flying by that you have in Georgian Bay. It's bigger water in general. When it does open up beyond the islands, It's sometimes just shocking how big the water, how expansive it is. And it's more islands and different wildlife. So let's go into it. I wanted to pull in a less spectacular shot and more of a map shot here, just to get across the point that there are so many islands in this area. So this is only the last about maybe like 30, 40K from Yellowknife, but almost every speck on this map is an island that, depending on your group size, could be viable for camping, as long as you can find a landing. So it's just amazing that depending on weather, depending on your group, and depending on what you're looking for, you could do multiple trips in this region and have completely different experiences from being on the outer islands, always having a vast open water feel, to being closer to the mainland and through tiny, intimate, quite shallow little channels, and meandering your way through. Google Maps is a good place to zoom in and really have a look at the extensive islands in this area if after this call you're looking for something else to do with your Monday night. So, the trip that we offer and the trip that we recommend to folks who are coming up to paddle the North Arm is from Frank's Channel to Yellowknife or Yellowknife to Frank's Channel, depending on weather when you're looking ahead. It's got truly unlimited route options, like I said before. I want to make sure you're not fooled by the seemingly accessibility of this A to B route with road access on both sides. It's truly still a remote expedition. It's very, very not utilized for the majority of this entire route until you get close to Yellowknife or close to Betchico or Frank's Channel. You might see some signs of people, but for the majority of the trip, it's true wilderness paddling. And it's a trip we're happy to offer as a more accessible expedition with road shuttle transportation. It allows us to keep costs lower compared to our fly-in expeditions, such as the East Arm and the majority of our other trips that we offer. As Dan was mentioning, there are not that many roads up here. So a lot of our trips, we need float plane access or boat access to them. So, what's so special about the North Arm? So, as I mentioned before, it's a glacier scraped area, which results in these stunning little channels you can see on the left, as well as these um, accessible landing sites, which, if you've paddled on anything that looks like something on the right, you know that it's deceiving and probably quite slippery, but it's still beautiful to be able to land and hop out of your boat there. The North Arm is culturally in the past and present is culturally a significant place for many people. And I'm amazed each time I paddle the North Arm that I of course mark all my sites every time I paddle, and I have yet to do a route where I pass the same spot, which is it's you're just picking your way through all of these islands. Um, there's not many places where you can turn down a campsite at early afternoon, knowing that there's going to be another one by the time you actually need to land. So it's a remarkable spot for that. So beyond the geological beauty, it's also home to monstrous pike, as you can see on the right side there, and over 100,000 migrating water birds that come through this region every year. So that's swans, terns, snow geese, endless bald eagles. Well, bald eagles aren't water birds, but endless bald eagles that you see almost on a daily basis, especially if you're looking. They're often still in their nests, but their nests are pretty obvious as you're paddling by. This picture was just taken just on a trip I just did in September. I thought that this eagle looked rather stoic. Eagles normally do, but this one looked particularly stoic. So I'm going to use this aerial photo here just to give you an understanding of the campsite styles on the North Arm. So you can see it's relatively flat terrain, though the elevation does increase as you get closer to Yellowknife. But it's scraped rock and uh, patchy rocks with some forested areas, which sets up good camps for kayakers. So zoomed in. You're camping on rocks. We often have our cooking area near the water. This one was moved particularly closer to the water for this image, but for a birthday picture. But it's a welcoming area, and yeah, a beautiful spot to camp and make your way towards Yellowknife. One benefit of the North Arm that has over the East Arm is that it is shallow, warmer water. So the ice comes out much quicker, much sooner than the East Arm, and it does allow us to offer a June paddling option. So the East Arm is still frozen during the midnight sun or the almost complete daylight, but the North Arm is a viable option. So if that interests you, then whether you do it self-supported or you want to come on a Jackpine trip, just reach out and we can try and make things work and allow you to get out. I also want to point out the photo on the left is the final stretch if you're going from Frank's Channel to Yellowknife, and it's coming into Yellowknife through Houseboat Bay. So all these buildings you can see there are floating houseboats, and it's definitely an iconic part of Yellowknife, and it's a truly amazing way to end a multi-day trip to paddle through a floating community into the heart of Yellowknife. Okay, so just for time, I'm just going to keep going. But of course, if you have questions, just jot them down and we'll jump back to them. But the East Arm is our trip offered that's known for northern expansive beaches and big open water and towering cliffs. And the East Arm is a world-class paddling destination that has yet to become famous, but I'm sure it's on its way because it's remarkable. So just to show on a map again to reorient, this time we are in the Goose's Neck. I think it was Monty mentioning that he did this trip a couple years ago. So he would have circumnavigated Ettin Island. It's a bit further than the little jump it looks like on a map. It's about 200 kilometers away from Yellowknife. And the island, the Ettin Island itself, that circumnavigation is a 70-kilometer route. So it's got a lot fewer islands out on the East Arm, but they are significantly larger. Yeah, big, huge islands with lots of cliffs. We run it as a 9-day trip, which does give time for fishing and for hiking in the cliffed area. So because it is more remote than the North Arm, it does require a boat or a plane shuttle. We use both boats and planes to get out to the East Arm. Like Dan was mentioning, we use local companies when we can. So we work with YK Sport Fishing for the boat shuttle, and we often use Air Tindy for often a twin otter to get out to this region. It allows us to bring tandem kayaks and singles and all the things we need for a trip. Both the boat shuttle and the plane, I think, are sometimes overlooked when booking an expedition. You're looking forward to the kayaking, the being out there, which is remarkable, but it's also it's very special to be able to fly over the East Arm or to boat out and truly feel the distance that you're going. And I think it's a part of a trip that shouldn't be overlooked because they give an understanding of how truly wild the entire region is. When you're flying, you see nothing and nothing and nothing, and then you land where there's nothing. And when you're boating, it goes on and on. You can't believe it's one lake. So they're both very special. So the main draw for this area, of course, are these stunning towering cliffs. These sheer cliffs drop straight into the water, and they're so sharp and straight into the water that you can paddle right next to them without being worried of hitting a rock or anything because it's so unbelievably deep. You're never going to just run into the ground. So when I paddle next to it, I often split my kayak paddle in half and canoe on the side away from the rock so that I can be inches away from the towering cliffs above me because it's just remarkable to be paddling under such giant sheer faces. I've been to this area 3 times and I'm still in awe each time I get a calm day that I can look at these cliffs and just sit. We don't plan very far distances on days where we know that the largest cliffs are going to be. So it's also one of the best places, and Monty also mentioned this, but it's one of the best places in the world to have hands-on experience of the oldest rocks. And you're right, Monty, they're up to 3 billion years old. I'm not going to dive too much into this, but if old rocks and geology interests you, or if you're just simply looking for an interesting read, we just released more of an in-depth kind of read on this on our website, on our blog page called Beneath the Hull, the East Arm's Ancient Tale. And it goes into much deeper detail into stromatolites and the fossils that create these wild formations that you can see on these rocks. So it's a special place, and you feel like you're surrounded by ancient rocks. So the variety of camping on the East Arm is much more expansive, rocky beaches, but instead of solid rock, it's much more of like a gravel style beach. This is one of my favorite campsites for views. I'll show you one of my favorite campsites for hiking soon, but I think this one wins for just the dramatic effect of the cliffs backing the tents there. Some other campsites are you still have some spots on the island where you get the more almost like the North Arm kind of build of the rocks, but obviously the view there is lacking islands to be the North Arm. So you get a mix of both, but the majority are the rocky, expansive gravel beaches. This is an example of another site. This is my favorite site for hiking. So I think Janet might be on the call, and she's in the photo on the right there, which is nice. So um, yeah, this with cliffs, with elevation comes the opportunity for day hikes, for getting out, getting a different vantage point. And when you're on a paddling trip, I think that's just a really special thing to be. You're at water level every day, and then on 1 or 2 days, you're able to go above, and you can see the bays where you were before and the bays where you're going to be the next day, before you even go around the corner. So it's wild wandering. So it's following where you can walk. There's no trails. It's relatively easy because the trees are sparse in the rocked areas. But you're mostly following, like you can see here, you follow where the rock is barren. So it kind of takes you to a different vantage point. And of course, you can do a smaller hike, or if you'd like to go further, you can head way up and get an incredible view, um, yeah, over over the cliffs and the variety of landscapes in the area. So beyond the open water, the cliffs, the rocky beaches, and the everything about the East Arm, the wildlife includes black bears, bald eagles, and other birds of prey. But the most famous and the most remarkable wildlife remains to be the incredible trout fishing. So the East Arm, with its deep, cold water, is a reliable source for trout fishing. The trout actually stay up a little bit higher because the water is cold. They don't need to be way far in the depths, which makes it um, just an incredible spot for people who fish and people who don't to be able to catch a meal for the group. But those with fishing experience truly understand how remarkable the catch rate is in this region. I had the opportunity to bring my dad, who's the center guy in this series of photos. He's a sea kayaking guide, has been a sea kayaking guide for over 30 years. He's an avid fisherman and he's a fish biologist as well. And I haven't heard the end about him wanting to come back to this region. And he wants to come back with my brothers, and it's an incredible spot that he he actually had to put the rod away when we had caught enough fish for dinner and enough fish that it was time to to stop. So it's yeah, it's an incredible spot if you want to feel like you're. I would say you don't want to start fishing here because it's pretty hard to fish anywhere else after. So beyond the photos, I just wanted to show you this short clip. It's relatively quick, and maybe Esmeralda, when I hit play here, if you can just give me a thumbs up that the volume is working, then I'll let it keep playing, okay?
We're 200 kilometers away from Yellowknife in the fabled East Arm. The reason why we were running tours here is the majestic cliffs, world-class trout fishing, clear, deep bays, and just pure, unspoiled wilderness. We're the only company running any kind of paddling tour out here in the East Arm.
Great Slave Lake is the 8th biggest lake in the world, and there's nobody on it. The size of the fish, the diversity of fish that you can find here, from lake trout to walleye to pike to whitefish and canoe.
All of my staff are from the Northwest Territories, and Jackpine Paddle is 100% Northern owned and operated.
You know these people are here because they love the North. They know it best. They grew up with it. You're able to see the connection that they have. You're able to live through the love that they have for this land. Kayaking, you're on your own in the boat. It's just you and the waves. It's you in the water. It's a good moment when you become one with the boat. When we get into camp, we set up the tarp, we set up maybe tables if we have them. You've got the rocks, you've got the stumps, the logs. You really work with the environment that you have around you to make a nice little dining area. It's very au naturel out here, but still quite comfortable.
Great Slave Lake is under the Aurora Belt, so you'll be treated to some spectacular aurora or northern lights. It's one of the best places in the world to see it.
The North has got a lot of freedom to offer, and also everything is so beautiful and so unique. The sensation of wilderness, the sensation of being alone on the land, not seeing anybody for 3, 4, 5 days, it's something that you won't find in the South.
If you're into, unplugging from the world, from Facebook, from your phone, and finding some real connection with the world around you, the natural world, some deeper meaning, this is the tour for you. That's why we come here, and that's what we're going to deliver.
Awesome. So I think a video sometimes shows a little bit more of the movement. You get a picture. So I haven't forgotten. I wanted to make sure I showed the North Arm and the East Arm before I talked about the Aurora. But of course, the Aurora is a huge draw, and it's truly special to experience on a trip. So in the video, they mentioned, I think it was Dan speaking when he mentioned the Aurora on these trips. So beginning in late August, the Aurora is a common experience. We just have to wait for the darkness to come back, and then the show arrives. So both the North Arm and the East Arm that we currently have posted for this coming year take place during the Aurora viewing season. Great Slave Lake is in the Aurora Belt and it's one of the best places in the world for these shows. But one of the most remarkable things about seeing them on a trip, on a wilderness trip, is that you're not getting in a tour van and going with the intention of seeing the Northern Lights. You're just existing out there, and every night you might see the Northern Lights. It's an exciting thing, and it's exciting every time it happens. I live in Whitehorse for the other half of the year, so we also have Northern Lights here, and I'm amazed at how excited I get still and get texts from friends if the Northern Lights are good all the time. So it's exciting for everybody at all times. So this past season, I was just brushing my teeth and saw one of the best movement Northern Lights I've ever seen, the most dancing. And I called everyone, and people had just gone to bed, and it's such a good moment when it's not anyone's intention to be staying up really late or setting an alarm. It just, you call it when you see it, and it happened at I think about 11, and it was beautiful. So the optimal option that people opt for every trip is to remain in your sleeping bag and open your tent and then just stick your head out. And that, when you get a good show, when you're in your cozy sleeping bag, that might be the best possible version of viewing the aurora. The photos on the right in this were taken by more long exposure, but the one on the left was just taken with an iPhone on the North Arm this past year. So it's incredible. So that was a lot of explaining both the North Arm, East Arm. I want to just break it down here for you, and then of course email or ask after if you have more questions. So the North Arm will start here. The landscape is more intimate channels, thousands of glacier carved islands, and shallow, warmer water. This leads you to an experience of protected waters with strategic crossings. So there are crossings, but you can island hop between. It's 130 kilometers to Yellowknife and takes 8 days, and it's Canadian Shield campsites. The highlights of this trip are northern pike, migratory waterbirds, as well as eagles. The June departure would be midnight sun, and the September is the aurora season. The east arm, the landscape is towering cliffs. It's very old rock, ancient rock, and deep, cold water. The experience is more open, expansive water. It's a 70-kilometer circumnavigation of an island, and the camping is on gravel, expansive, large northern beaches. The highlights of the East Arm is reliable trophy-sized lake trout entering the national park, Tadenenene, the float plane and the boat shuttles, and the later season departure results in the aurora season. So whether you want to do either of these expeditions as a self-guided, we're happy to help with logistics, understandings, rentals. But our departure dates of guided expeditions, we have space on the North Arm here. And right now we have a September date posted, September 1st to 8th. But if you are interested in a midnight sun spring trip, just reach out and we might be able to post another date. Or if there's a couple people who want to come up, we can work with you. So if it's just you and you're interested, reach out, because if multiple, one person interests reach out, then we have enough to build a trip and we can do our best. So the East Arm, our 2026 trip dates are August 18th to 26th. At this point, there are still spots available. If it fills up, we will consider adding another date range. Of course, logistics in the north, we always have to be willing to adapt. So if you are interested, please reach out and we're happy to try and make it work. We have previously run trips in collaboration with Dimpna and James at Ontario Sea Kayaking Center and Amber Champion, as Monty mentioned, with Blue Dog. And this coming summer, I'm not sure if Norm's on the call, but I think he is. We will also be collaborating for first for us, a stand-up paddleboard multi-day trip on the East Arm. So there's more information on that if you go to Norm Han Expedition webpage, and that trip is August 12th to 18th. So if I was saying SKABC, and then I heard a couple people say SKABC, so I will go with that. So if SKABC has a group interested, and there's certain dates that work for you, that aren't these dates, please reach out. Maybe we can collaborate on a trip if there's a group of folks within your membership that are interested. This region, I hope I got this across to you, but this region it's world-class paddling, and the word really hasn't gotten out yet. There's been a couple mentions tonight about people not necessarily hearing of this area. It's still relatively unknown. Taidenenene is a relatively new park still, but we believe one day, and I truly believe this is true, that it will be a #1 kayaking, canoeing destination, like the word Nahani that people drop as just a draw for the spectacular, the kayaking, it's just an incredible area. So we encourage you to come up here while it's still only a few people, a handful of people that get to paddle in this wondrous area every year. So finally, to wrap up here before we move on for a question period, we of course have dreams of future expeditions, as I'm sure all paddlers do. So nothing set in stone, but I just want to mention a couple. Great Bear Lake, so north of Great Slave Lake, you can see on the map there. The top part of Great Bear Lake is actually in the Arctic Circle, and it's definitely of interest to possibly run a trip there with pristine. It's known for pristine, absolutely crazy clear water. I paddled on it this summer, and it's a remarkable spot that I would love to spend more time exploring. Or perhaps we'll go deeper into Taidenenene and get some muskox from kayak. Viewing muskox from a boat is a pretty special piece. So if you would be interested in being part of an inaugural expedition to a future destination, I'm not saying it would be one of these two, but a new route, feel free to email info@jackpinepaddle.com, and we'll compile a bit of a list of people who would be interested in trying out a new route or trying a new area that hasn't been sea kayaked before. It won't be for this coming summer, but in the future we'll have this compiled list and we can reach out and see if we can make something happen. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then please email and we'll add you to a list and get in touch with you in the future. So Dan and I both want to say thank you for signing on a Monday night to hear about this incredible space. We'll move to the question period, and we've already heard from one person, but I imagine there's a couple people on this call that have been to one of these places. So if you're on this call and you've paddled here, whether it be with us or not, please feel free to either put in the question box or maybe raise your hand. And we, of course, love to hear your 2 cents about your experience in this area. And yeah, and thank you very much for listening.